Welcome back to 9 and 4 and more. Thank you all for joining and watching this amazing video we're about to give you guys. But Doug Peterson, officially the head coach of the Jacksonville Jaguars. He actually goes down as the ninth head coach in franchise history after only being in the league for 20-something years. It's usually not a good thing that it's been that many head coaches. But I'm Tyler. This is Brandon, my co-host for 9 and 4 and more. We talk Jags football and other news around the NFL. And like I just said, Doug Marrone, the new head coach for the Jacksonville Jaguars, someone that we should all be excited for, but it's like we're not excited for it just because of the process and everything that took place in the past, 40-something days. I think 46 days to be exact. But Brandon, how you feeling?
I'm opening up a Duke's, and that's how I feel. It's Friday. We're finally done with it. And that's the best way to end a Friday besides the Doug Peterson announcement kind of situation, man. It deserves a beer for what every Jags fan I feel like has gone through. And I feel like most would agree this is the second best option we could have had. The first one was sitting in our lap, and time will tell if we should have gone with the first option or gone with the second one. But I think after the crap show that's been for 46 days, like you said, or whatever, how long it's been, at least something finally happened, and it's looking like it's okay. I think a lot of people still, Balky looks like he's staying as a GM, but with Spielman and Peterson, it kind of looks like Balky will just be an overpaid scout and not actually running this football team.
Yeah, hopefully that's best case scenario. But with Doug Peterson, he was definitely my number two option, at worst number three. It was between Leftwich, him, and Caldwell were all, my top three. I think we all wanted Leftwich, at least majority of the fans, I would say, wanted Leftwich. And I think we were all set on Leftwich. Yeah. And I think it's not because we were all set on Leftwich. It's just like this whole process. Like, you interviewed Doug Peterson. Doug Peterson is actually the first coach he interviewed after Urban Meyer got fired. And after that, he wasn't a finalist. It was Nathaniel Hackett, Eberflus, I think that's however you say his name, Chicago.
He has another difficult last name.
And Leftwich were the finalists. And then after, he went up to Chicago, got the job. Hackett went over there to the Broncos to get that job. And then Leftwich is basically here looking like he's going to become the head coach.
Yeah.
But nothing, he wasn't given any like yes or no for like a week and a half. And, based off some reports that we were reading off Twitter, what was it, last Tuesday or Wednesday, that he gave the Jaguars till yesterday to give him an answer. And
a week and a half.
Yeah, and that report came out saying that he was going to be withdrawing his name from the hat, and that's when the Jaguars decided to pull the trigger on Doug Peterson. But they did interview Doug Peterson, I think, like a week or so ago again for the second time, maybe 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, it wasn't 2 weeks ago. It was like, I think early this week. I think it was like Monday or something like that.
Yeah, so it was pretty recent.
There's been so much news going around because it was supposed to be Kevin O'Connell. That was the whole thing, is like, if the Rams would have lost, Kevin O'Connell actually probably would have gotten an interview here. But because the Rams won, we couldn't interview him. So then they shifted to go to Doug Peterson. And that's where we get to this whole just absolute madness of what was happening and looks like incompetence. And somehow we falled up is like the common phrase people are using right now, is like somehow we falled into Doug Peterson's and Rick Spielman's lap again, where we almost just try to do Kevin O'Connell, who just accepted the Vikings job. So that would have been the third candidate that we would have been like, okay, we want to interview you. And the second we interview them, they're gone to another team. So it's again, I think we really lucked into this, but I'm kind of glad we did. But at the same time, I think we really did Byron Leftwich dirty, I feel like.
No, absolutely. I mean, I feel like there should have been some communications from the Jaguar side of things. Obviously, Byron Leftwich really wanted the job. If they weren't going to go along with Byron Leftwich just for the fact that he wasn't going to work at Balky or whatever it was, they should have just let him know, hey, we're probably going to go a different direction. We know we appreciate you and all that. That would have been more respectful and also more professional. Instead, they just leave him high and dry. I mean, to me, that's not good, and that just leaves a bad mark on the team and as an owner and just as a franchise in general.
Especially to a guy who wanted to be here, man. You could tell he wore a teal suit for his first interview. We don't know what he wore to his second interview. Maybe he wore some other teal suit, or maybe like an all black suit, or, whatever. He clearly wanted to be here, man. He turned down other jobs to be here, and he was pretty much set. I want to be a Jacksonville Jaguars head coach, or I'm going back to Tampa. And I think what happened was, I think we all kind of get what happened. He basically was lying that he was going to work with Balky up until the last minute. And then he told Shad and Balky, I actually don't want to work with you. I want to work with Adrian Wilson, who's the VP of scouting for the Arizona Cardinals, because he has ties still with that organization and Adrian Wilson over there. So I think that's what caught up, because you had like Mike Garafolo coming out and basically saying, I can 100% guarantee you that coaches have been saying to me that Balky's right in their face in these interviews, and Shad's literally asking them, will you work with Trent Baalke? And he confirmed at least one source that do that interview with the Jaguars that said, I lied to their face, because Baalke's right there. If I say no, the interview's done. If I say yes, we can keep at least the ball rolling, and maybe I get another shot and convince them later. So again, it's just that whole process of just doing an absolute terrible job at interviewing, and just way we fell into Doug Peterson and Spielman will go down forever as just one of the weirdest happy accidents. And we completely screwed Leftwich over, and he wanted to be here. He gave way more time than I think most candidates would. That week and a half, like I feel like that's almost unheard of giving a team a week and a half to decide if they want to hire you or not, and you not go see other, like the Saints offered him and he didn't even want to like bring that idea forward. Yeah. So I think Byron Leftwich held it as best as he possibly could. He wanted to come here, and end of the day, I think he wanted Adrian Wilson and himself, and Shad wanted to keep Baalke, and Baalke came back and said, hey, as a plan B survival thing, so that way I don't lose my job to Leftwich and Adrian Wilson, I'll bring on Doug, and Doug will sign on if we bring on Spielman. So Baalke's been working on this whole dynamic duo, and the only way those two were going to come here is if they came together. But he understood, if I bring them in, I'm losing control of this team, but at least I'm alive. So that's how I feel like how it went down, was Baalke's plan B worked, and it's going to cost them having control over the team.
No, yeah, absolutely. 100% agree. Before I talk more about Doug Peterson and all that, I mean, we all want to put the blame on Baalke. Baalke deserves all the blame in the world, but it starts with one person, that's Shad Khan, for allowing this whole chaos. Shad Khan, then Baalke. Those are two people that are at fault, 100%. Shad Khan, I feel like is one of those owners that's too nice, maybe is the word. Maybe too nice. He's not involved like, Jerry Jones. He's not involved at all. He does his own thing. He lets whoever is in the front office, they do everything. They're basically like the owner of the team, sort of. Pretty much. If you kind of think about it like that. So that's why this Baalke, fire Baalke thing all started. It's not all because we want Baalke gone, is we want Shad Khan to wake up as well, and maybe become more hands-on owner, which something he talked about last year when we hired Urban Meyer. I'm going to be a hands-on owner more, or get more involved. I think you're less involved than you've ever been, in my opinion. Like you're less involved. But definitely Shad Khan deserves a lot of blame, as well as Baalke. I think with Spielman coming in here, I do think there's a chance that Baalke maybe gets fired around training camp potentially. We'll see what happens. But going back to Doug Peterson, at the end of the day, I'm super happy for Doug Peterson to be your head coach. Like I said, I wanted Byron Leftwich, but Doug Peterson is my number 2 in the top 3, I think, for most people, most fans out there. And I think right now in the short term, Doug Peterson is going to be a lot better for Trevor Lawrence than Byron Leftwich. Byron Leftwich, I think, is going to be a fantastic coach. I think he's going to, for the long run, Byron Leftwich would have been the better option. But right now, for Trevor Lawrence's development, I think it needs to be Doug Peterson.
Well, I think Byron would have done a pretty good job as well, too. Byron Leftwich, he hasn't had the opportunity like Doug Peterson had with
to groom a quarterback.
Exactly. He had Tom Brady, and he had Drew Stanton and Blaine Gabbert. Those two, all 3 of those quarterbacks, there's no more developing. They're pretty much where he got them in their career is where they were going to be, whether it's Hall of Fame or bottom of the roster. How are you an NFL starter kind of situation? So Doug Peterson made a lot of work out of Nick Foles. I'm repping my Super Bowl shirt 4 years ago. Today is the day that Doug Peterson won the Super Bowl with the Eagles 4 years ago. And it's kind of timely that he is 4 years later, he's a Jacksonville Jaguars head coach. But he can show he can get it done. Like you said, he was my 2nd, 3rd pick. So we're not mad at Doug Peterson. We're not mad at Rick Spielman. Almost not even mad at Baalke. Dude's just a dude that just tries to stay alive kind of situation. This is all his job. Shad has shown repeatedly he doesn't know what he's doing. And I'm glad we're finally getting, well, we had an EVP and Tom Coughlin, but that was the total misfire. So we'll see with Spellman. We'll see if this is going to be Tom Coughlin 2.0, and he's just going to be that angry old man in the corner trying to run everything, telling players to shut up and just being like stuck in the 90s. I don't get that feel from Spielman. He's been in the league for 10 years and, well, more than 10 years, but he's been the Vikings GM, I believe, for 10 years.
Been a while, yeah.
You don't say it in the Vikings. I mean, they haven't had complete total success, but they haven't been the worst team by far. Like if you were switch the Jags and the Vikings last 10 years, everybody would take the Vikings, like how they've been able to perform, stuff like that.
You
so
know, pretty decent roster for the most part. Obviously, every GM's going to miss on, a few
yeah,
players. That it happens. You're not going to be perfect in every draft or every free agency. It's just not going to happen. But he's been fairly well.
If you look at it, it's pretty decent. You can't look at his draft class and be like, oh, those are terrible picks. Those are all like, you look at them, and the misses that he does have are usually in the later rounds, but not in the later rounds. I'm sorry, later or the first round. It's not like where we are, where we're pick 5, pick 7, or anything like that. And he likes to trade down, which I think is the correct move when you're in those positions, like in the 20s or so. Get out of there. The guy you're going to get at 20, you can probably get that guy at like 30 or 40 kind of situation. I don't think we trade down this year because I don't think anybody wants to trade up. But we'll see. It's an interesting thing now, considering that we do have our head of football operations pretty much be a guy who likes to trade down basically any chance he gets. And maybe we just take a really, not a crap deal, but, not a typical trade out of the number 1 spot kind of deal, maybe just for like a 2nd round pick and maybe like a 3rd round pick instead of like what normally would take like 2 firsts almost to move up. So we'll see. That'll be the most interesting part, I think, when draft starts. I think I'm not worried. I guess let's just put it that way. I'm not worried. I think we actually have a good football program. Balky can go sit in the corner and just be like, can I put my drawing on the fridge, mommy and daddy, to Doug Peterson and Spellman every now and then. So Balky can just sit there. He can enjoy the success that Peterson and Spielman will create, especially with Trevor Lawrence. Going to have, in my opinion, they're going to have close to 80 million in cap space. And I think that's really exciting for Doug, because Doug's never had that kind of cap space before. I just worry about the free agents coming in still.
No, yeah, that's still my worry with free agents. I definitely think it's, obviously, if we would have got Kevin O'Connor or O'Neal, definitely that would have, or even if we kept Bevel as a head coach, we definitely would not got any free agents. But with Doug Peterson and also Rick Spielman, I think that's going to help our case a little bit better. Obviously, Byron Leftwich and Wilson, they would have
brought in so many people, especially with the Cardinals and the Bucks. That would have been ideal free agent wise.
But I still think we're still going to get some key players, maybe not, A+ player, but I think A-, B+, it's better than what we have now. Yeah. And what's kind of funny is that Doug Peterson took over a Chip Kelly Eagles roster that was basically terrible.
Garbage, dumpster fire.
Garbage. And he was a former college head coach. And now look, Urban Meyer took over his team. It's a garbage roster for the most part.
2 years. 2 years to the Super Bowl. So we'll see.
So this year, 7-10 next year, 13-14 win Super Bowl. That's the plan, I think.
Lawrence looking like MVP. Hopefully he doesn't end like Carson Wentz MVP year, but
right, absolutely.
He can make Carson Wentz look like that and an MVP with that kind of roster, because the Eagles did not really have that great wide receivers. People forget that team that won the Super Bowl, they had Torrey Smith and an aging Alshon Jeffries. That was their receiving core, and Zach Ertz. So we'll see. Maybe Zach Ertz comes here. That'd be my first bold prediction, I guess, of free agent coming here. I would not put it by that we're going to probably get Zach Ertz.
Yeah. I think Darren Arnold has to be happy about this, because, they like to utilize tight ends. I mean, Doug Peterson, by the way, is probably going to be the offensive play caller, which is awesome. Mm-hmm. We're going to have offensive minded coach, someone that's going to be, willing to work with Trevor Lawrence all the time. Trevor Lawrence, you can already tell, is excited. His wife, Marissa, actually already posted on there as well, Instagram. So, Trevor Lawrence is hyped about this. And it's going to be interesting what staff he builds. We already seen rumors of Vic Fangio, potentially Mike Zimmer, for defensive coaches. So I think in the coming days, we'll start seeing that coaching staff, come together. And from based off before about an hour ago before we started this video, I was on Twitter and they said that it hasn't been official yet for the press conference date, but it's more likely going to be tomorrow. It's definitely weird doing it on a Saturday, but they went and picked Doug Peterson up today in the airplane. It's gonna be interesting to see if Bulky and Shad Khan are in on this press conference. If they're not, then obviously Shad Khan definitely knows what's going on around him in the surrounding areas. And it's also gonna be interesting if it's gonna be in person or more so for Zoom, introduction press conference. But I'm excited. 3-4 days ago when we didn't know Byron Leftwich was going to come here because we didn't hear anything, I was getting very nervous. I think you were well. We were at the point where this is terrible. This is the worst franchise ever, and all of a sudden we pulled this one little string out and it had Peterson's name on it, and we got our head coach hopefully for the future.
And I still don't think that we should. Yes, congratulations us, Doug Peterson, Rick Spielman. Great for us. We're in line to get some really top end defensive coaches, at least offensive wise. I think we're going to get someone maybe on the younger side, just because Doug Peterson is going to handle most of the offense. And he likes to groom people up on the offensive side. But the defensive side, I think we're going to get someone like Fangio, Jim Schwartz to come back. Mike Zimmer, I think, name has also been thrown around. So there's a lot of, I think we're going to get a very big time, well-known defensive coordinator, and probably a guy like Press Taylor from the Colts, who has ties to Doug, where he only got promoted when he was under the Eagles. Every year he basically got a promotion under Doug Peterson. So could see that. Could also see maybe Matt Nagy would be a decently big name. But it's going to be interesting what this front office and the staff is going to look like. I think it's going to be virtual. I don't think Shad Khan wants to take questions in his face kind of thing. He might.
I don't know how to handle it right now, though.
I've been
directed at him.
I've been joking on Twitter. I think Shad Khan's going to try to do everything he can to become a hologram. Because I don't think he ever wants to actually even meet the press. He's probably one of the most aloof owners you could find. He maybe meets the press once a year. So we'll see what happens. But yeah, you got to assume Bulky will not be, or it would be really bad for Shad not to be in that interview, not with the conference, I would say, just because how big of a milestone this is with Peterson and Spellman. But man, those questions are going to be thrown, hopefully, probably by Mark Long. Mark Long does not hold back. But hopefully I still want the reporters to attack Shad and Bulky on this head coaching search and not just wipe it under the rug, because we really did look into this. I 100% think this is, if one of the worst run off-season head coaching
terrible
just of all time. We're talking from a PR standpoint. We're talking from just the way it looked with all the head coaches, all the now head coaches taking other jobs, and then the Byron Leftwich situation. The rumors going around that Kevin O'Connell trying to request an interview, even though you haven't had a first interview. And if he won, you can't even do it until after the Super Bowl. It's February 4th. We have no one at the Senior Bowl. I think we had one person represented.
I think, if I'm not mistaken, they said it was Zach or inside or outside linebackers coach.
Who knows if he's even going to be on this team with Doug?
I assume he probably will be, just based off the fact he went to the Senior Bowl, if I had to guess.
Right, I would too, but that you have other people having their coaches there, their entire everybody there, and here we are with a guy who we're pretty sure is going to be on our team. I don't even know if we had any. I would assume we had at least one person at the East-West Shrine game last night watched it, or maybe they just watched it on their TVs. Who knows? It's just a complete and utter mess of what has transpired, and I'm happy that we ended up probably on the best possible second best possible note, in my opinion. I still think Byron and Adrian Wilson was the right call, especially with the whole, just from a PR standpoint. Imagine if we were the first team to have an all minority owner, GM, and head coach. They would have gotten so much national attention. We would have gotten probably other teams and other players celebrating the Jaguars. So just from that aspect too, I think we kind of missed out on just having a complete PR fluff piece that we could have had and ridden into the sunset. Because as of right now, from what I understand, Eric Bieniemy is the only minority head coach still interviewing. because the Texans, I believe, are set on Josh McCown. The Dolphins, I honestly don't know what the Dolphins are doing. That might be the other team that might be worse than the Jaguars with this head coaching thing going on. But the Saints have just now requested Eric Bieniemy, but we're all pretty sure that was a Rooney Rule kind of like thing going on, and they're going to just promote Dennis Allen from the defensive coordinator to head coach. So we're not even sure what's going to happen. The Jaguars would just sail into that sunset as the only team doing that in a year in which everybody's getting rid of their minority head coaches and everything like that. So I do think the Jaguars missed out on that.
No, yeah, absolutely. But I mean, when you look at Doug Peterson's resume, 7-9,
Yeah.
13-3, 9-7, 9-7. I mean, 4-11. That last year, I mean, it's the front office and they butted heads. I mean, that's just, I'm not even really, we got to count it. But
that was one of the most injured years I've ever seen for a team. Like I got an Eagles shirt on right now. I follow the Eagles. Like the whole dad side of the family are Eagles fans from Philly and stuff like that. I follow them. I watch them almost as much as I watch the Jags. They said, I think actually the Titans broke the record this year, which is kudos to the Titans to even get to the playoffs, and the Eagles couldn't even win like 5 games doing the same thing. But they had like the most starters ever on like a 53-man roster, or like most players ever on a 53-man roster due to injuries and circumstances and all that jazz. So that year, Eagles fans really don't even count it. That was just happened to be the year that it was Carson Wentz or Jalen Hurts, and Doug wanted to stick with his guy and how he wanted to move on with Hurts, and that's what kind of caused the division kind of situation. If it wasn't for that, Doug would still be there. So that whole year completely changed the directory of Doug Peterson's career, and now he's here in Jacksonville.
No, yeah, absolutely. And before we go, so obviously, you know, we're more likely going to the Jags game up in Philadelphia. He's probably going to get a standing ovation just because he brought the Super Bowl, title to Philadelphia. But I'm going to make a bold prediction. The Jaguars are somehow up by 3 or whatever, and they get to the goal line. I really think they're going to run some type of Philly special just because.
That would definitely make a pretty good story. I don't know if you Jags fans would like that. I think Jags fans still want Trevor Lawrence to be bubble wrapped. And we don't really want him to run out there to try to catch a ball. But if it's just in the end zone and he doesn't take a big hit, yeah, that would be – who would throw the ball? I mean, we don't have the whole roster right now, but I'm trying to think.
Marvin Jones has a pretty good arm from my understanding.
Marvin Jones, I could see Jamal Agnew. He's good at everything. I don't know how I would assume if
he's got to be a good quarterback as well. I mean, just has to be.
Yeah, like the dude's, and that'd be the ultimate decoy. You see Marvin Jones in the backfield. Come on, he's not running the ball. You see Jamal Agnew in the backfield, you're thinking he's running the ball kind of situation.
Yeah.
Because in that play, like you toss it as like a kind of like a jet sweep coming around, and the quarterback goes out for the pass instead of like blocking or whatever it is. And if you see Marvin Jones getting that jet sweep pass, I don't think there's a single defender thinking he's actually going to run the ball.
No, absolutely. I wonder how the fan reaction, if they actually ran a Philly special and it was conference. I wonder how fans would actually react there though, like with Doug Peterson returning.
I think Eagles fans, if they lost in the game, Eagles fans would be pissed. Eagles fans don't really care. Like everybody will cheer. I still think there will be some boos. Eagles fans are ruthless, especially in Philly. They don't care. Like there's a video of this one time, I think the Eagles were up by like 20, and this woman in the stands is like cursing out Carson Wentz and Doug Peterson for only being up by 20 because they were against some scrub team or whatever it was. And that's how bad there will be boos when Doug Peterson in, because there are some people that are just so diehard to whatever the team wants in Philly that they're going to be like, oh yeah, Doug got a Super Bowl, but he wanted to keep Carson Wentz over Jalen Hurts kind of situation. So he's dead to us because he wanted Carson Wentz. Especially how this year played off. If Carson Wentz maybe was really, really good and Jalen Hurts sucked, maybe there wouldn't be. But the fact that Jalen Hurts in his first 20 games has stats better than Josh Allen's first 20 games, and Carson Wentz literally cost them go into the playoffs pretty much, it changes that dynamic. But
and Doug Peterson also butted heads in that front office for drafting Jalen Hurts when he in the second round. At the time, every Eagles fan was pissed off. I know you were upset too, because we were actually watching the draft on Zoom together. And I was laughing because I think I was like 5-10 seconds ahead of you. And he said, "What did they just do?" And then he listened to it and you were mad about it.
Yeah. They've made some just Howie Roseman is like one of those GMs that's just, who knows what he's really thinking. I feel like he's really good at contracts, but I think player evaluation is not his.
Like drafting, not very good.
Not good, but he can make cap space like there's no one's business. He restructures so many contracts and he does it so well that it creates cap space when there is no cap space.
Yeah.
So he's really good on the business side, but man, player evals, he's not good. But yeah, I couldn't believe that and then you got Spielman, who was literally laughing at Doug Peterson and how when they drafted Jalen Reagor over Justin Jefferson, and now you got both of them in the same room. So that'll be an interesting. I'm sure they'll have a good laugh about that, about how literally that went viral of Spielman laughing at Doug Peterson and the Eagles for completely whiffing on that draft pick.
No, yeah, absolutely. But other than that, though, I'm hyped about Doug Peterson. You're hyped about Doug Peterson. I mean, we're hyped as best as we can be, especially in the circumstances. Like,
this was 2 weeks ago. You probably would have seen me opening 2 beers, but
for excitement.
For excitement. Now it's just 1 beer I'm finally done with this, and I'm going to have more later kind of situation.
Oh,
but
yeah, absolutely.
The optics are just absolutely terrible with this, and I really do hope that fans remember the optics and not just be like, oh, we're finally done, let's go celebrate. It's like, you can celebrate, I have no problem with that, but also remember Trent Baalke's still here. Shad Khan got lucked into this, and it was one of the most disastrous head coaching searches of all time. And I really hope the media doesn't just wipe that away. Like, we know national media will, because national media really doesn't care about the Jaguars. But local media, there needs to be some kind of answer of why this happened. And I'm really interested in if we ever get a response from Byron on his side of what happened.
Maybe eventually will.
Yeah, I don't think he will, maybe until he becomes a head coach, because if you're trashing an organization for not hiring you, it just doesn't look good, especially the way like the owners are and stuff like that. So maybe we'll see after he's a head coach, but he's the most, I want to know his opinion about how everything went down, because I feel like his would be the most truthful. I feel like Shad and Baalke will lie through their teeth that they were actually doing everything they could and it was Byron's team, or something like that. So who knows what will happen? No one really, literally no one knows what was happening the last week.
Yeah, absolutely. And also, another reason Trent Baalke deserves to be fired is that Chris Carter story that came out today.
Oh yeah, how do we forget to talk about that already? Urban Meyer might still be the head coach. If Chris Carter, he said on a thing, I would never have let that plane incident happen where he stayed and got drunk at the bar and had the girl on him and stuff like that. Chris Carter said that it never would have happened. I mean, it's a lot easier to say that now, but if that doesn't happen, and possibly he is better at mitigating not Trevor, but the players in Urban could still be on this team, man.
He might have won 6 games then possibly instead of 3.
Right. And you would have had, I think you would have had, if you had Chris Carter on your team, that's an easy, smooth under the rug. Hey, go talk with Chris Carter. If you're having issues, go talk with Chris. Chris can talk to anybody. He's good with national media too. He would have gotten so much hype. And Baalke apparently thinks Hall of Fame Chris Carter, national broadcasters on Good Morning Football now, and all this guy is apparently has no value. And that blows my mind that he thinks he is better than Chris Carter and thinks Chris Carter isn't even worth being in the building. That blows my mind that he's so bad at seeing other people's value. I feel like it's all about him, but I think he thinks he's the biggest shit in the house, probably, kind of thing.
Oh yeah, absolutely. That story was crazy to me. I think a lot of Jags fans definitely thought it was insane. And even if you weren't a Jags fan, if you haven't seen, definitely you can find it on YouTube. And Chris Carter.
Oh yeah, it's out there right now.
Yeah, 100%. So, I mean, that might have been actually one of Urban Meyer's downfalls, is not finding that assistant that would help him direct of how to go about the NFL. Because obviously he's still new to it. He didn't know how to talk to players. He didn't know how to talk to media properly. NFL, style. College is totally different. NFL, these are like grown men. They get paid. You can't treat them a certain way. Chris Carter would have helped with that. But Hey, now we're here, Doug Peterson, head coach. I mean,
Yeah, blessing in disguise, maybe. Maybe we saw Urban's whole thing, so maybe this is somehow a blessing in disguise that because of Balky's ineptitude of bringing actual talent to this team, we may actually luck into being really, really good for the next 10 years.
no, yeah, absolutely. But other than that, thank you all for watching. Hit that subscribe button. Definitely follow us on Twitter, 904 and more. And before we go, going to use one of Doug Peterson's favorite lines. Let's go get some ice cream. Go
Yeah,
Jags.
boy.